Before humans, before animals, before even the idea of life, there was only fire. Imagine rewinding time 4.5 billion years. The Earth you know disappears. No blue oceans, no green forests, no sky filled with birds. The planet is a raging furnace. The Earth is not a home, it is a battlefield. For millions of years, nothing survives on land. But slowly, painfully, the Earth begins to cool. The rain comes, not for days or years, but for thousands of years without stopping. And deep beneath those dark waters, something impossible happens. Life appears, tiny, silent, invisible. Creatures crawl from the sea, forests rise, thick, endless, alien jungles. This Earth is no paradise. Every shadow hides danger. Then, the giants arrive. On land, dinosaurs rule, creatures so large the Earth bends beneath them. And above them, the sky is no longer safe. Small creatures survive only by hiding, staying silent, running. They will one day be called Homo habilis, born into a world that does not care if they live or die. How do you survive a planet that was never meant for you? This was not a world built for mercy. It was a world built for survival. For tens of millions of years, Earth belonged to the giants. They did not simply walk the Earth, they reshaped it. Jaws strong enough to shatter bone in a single bite. Some were not the largest, only the deadliest. Here, survival was never guaranteed. But the land was only half the nightmare. The skies were ruled by ancient, dragon-like predators. From above, nothing could hide. Sometimes, a shadow was enough to bring the world to a standstill. In this age, there was no balance, only dominance. Mistakes did not fade. They erased entire species. And yet, life endured. The night became their refuge, and silence their greatest defense. Then, the world changed in a single, unimaginable moment. Even the unstoppable could not outrun extinction. The world did not become safe, only quieter. In the silence that followed, evolution was already at work. After the fall of the giants, the Earth did not celebrate. For the first time in millions of years, the world went quiet. Rivers still flowed, but the giants were gone. Bones became monuments to a vanished empire. Extinction did not end danger, it only reshaped it. And in the quiet, new hunters began to rise. Enormous cats with crushing jaws once again ruled the land. Others hunted unseen, patient, waiting for a single mistake. Even the sky still hunted. This was not peace, it was a reset. Now, survival belonged to the adaptable. And among the survivors, a fragile lineage began to rise. They judged distance and chose when to move. They could hold, they could strike, they could shape. One wrong sound meant death. They began to learn the rhythms of danger. This was not intelligence yet, it was awareness. They did not step into safety, they stepped into history. At first, it was an accident. A stone slipped from uncertain fingers. Then, impact. For the first time, nature had been reshaped. A broken edge, sharp enough to change the rules. This was no longer chance. It was discovery. For the first time, a creature created an advantage. They took what the giants left behind. Inside the bones was fuel for a growing mind. The world began to notice. Small prey was no longer helpless. They watched. They waited. Then they moved. Alone, they perished. Together, they endured. Some nights, survival meant staying unseen. With every strike, they challenged the world around them. They were still fragile, but no longer powerless. Homo habilis did not inherit the earth. They survived inside it. Every sunrise was a question. Every sunset, relief. The land was still ruled by monsters. Across the plains, crushing jaws still hunted. Homo habilis lived between them. They chose broken land where giants could not follow. Stone and shadow became allies in the art of survival. They memorized the land, step by step. When monsters hunted, Homo habilis vanished. Their paths, their shadows became invisible to danger. They moved when the light betrayed no one. Fire terrified the giants, and Homo habilis remembered. They did not fight monsters, they outweighed them. They took what they could and vanished, silently and swiftly. Fear became their first language, deeply understood. To the monsters, they were no longer easy prey, fiercely unpredictable. Death still came, often leaving hearts heavy and silent. The world tried to erase them, but they refused to disappear. Fire was not created by Homo habilis, yet their world trembled. It came from the sky, wild and untamed, fierce and blinding. The land ignited, and the world began to burn, consuming all in its path. Everything fled, but Homo habilis watched, unflinching in the chaos. Even the great predators feared it, halting before its blazing fury. Even the largest beasts refused to cross it, and Homo habilis understood. At first, they only followed what fire left behind, learning every hidden trace. Meat touched by fire was softer, easier to consume, altering ancient appetites. But getting close meant risking everything, life and limb. For the first time, they dared to touch it, trembling yet curious. And for the first time, the darkness kept its distance, watched by cautious eyes. Sleep came easier, but never without fear, waiting for unseen dangers. Fire was not just warmth, it was borrowed control, fragile and urgently watched. They shared food, they shared safety, they shared time, forging bonds in flickering light. In the firelight, meaning began to form, shared through careful gestures. Children learned by watching, not by dying, copying every careful step. The balance of fear began to shift, predators sensing change. The world was watching, and it would respond. The natural world does not surrender quietly. Fire changed the rules, but nature was already adapting, shapes forever altered. At first, the predators kept their distance, eyes haunted by firelight. But hunger does not retreat, its shadow lengthening over time. And fear began to fade, curiosity testing dangerous limits. They learned the distance and they learned the limits, watching every flicker. The illusion of safety began to fade. shadows creeping into every corner. Then one night, the darkness screamed.
Attacking! Run for the rocks!
Panic moved faster than thought, limbs flying into survival instinct. The beast fell, but not before reminding them how fragile they were, fate twisting the night. Fire was powerful, but never a guarantee, shifting its grip like temperamental light. And the predators were learning, circling deeper into shifting shadows. Some predators hunted together, and Homo habilis had only one advantage left: retreat. So once again, survival demanded change, adapting to every challenge. They stopped waiting for danger and began preparing for it. They did not need to be stronger, only harder to hunt, risk making retreat wiser. Some nights, entire groups simply disappeared, leaving silence behind. For the first time since the giants fell, the Earth faced something new. Something had changed, shifting the dawn toward new awareness. Not in the land, not in the predators, nothing had changed yet. But within Homo habilis, the mind was awakening, sensing patterns everywhere. They were no longer only reacting, they were beginning to anticipate. Fear was no longer just a reflex, it was becoming awareness. Every sound, every track, even silence carried meaning, guiding their steps. They learned which seasons carried danger and which carried life. Different strengths began to matter. Survival was no longer random. Patterns began to form. Knowledge was no longer discovered alone. It was passed on. This was not instinct. This was culture. For the first time, their choices began to favor tomorrow. Even the great predators sensed the shift. Across generations, small decisions began shaping their world. Understanding deepened. Precision improved. Awareness expanded. Survival was no longer individual. It was shared. The age of giants had passed, and a new kind of power was rising. Claws and teeth were no longer the greatest danger. The planet itself began to change. Rains failed. Seasons stretched dry for years. When the rains returned, they returned as floods. Food chains collapsed. Rivers shifted. Lakes vanished. Drought forced the living closer together. Some stayed and were never seen again. To stay alive, they had to keep moving. Even their greatest advantages began to fail. Some groups chose different directions. Paths remembered for generations were left behind. Some followed water. Others sought the high ground. Every decision could be their last. Still, they moved forward. Disaster became their greatest teacher. The world grew quieter, not safer, just different. Homo habilis had not conquered the planet. They had prepared it. Homo habilis did not rule the Earth. They did something far more important. They changed what came next. When their time began, the world belonged to monsters. When their time ended, the rules were different. They were never kings. They were survivors. They lived beside giants. They stole fire. They shaped stone.
They began turning fear into knowledge. Every tool became a message to the future. Every shared fire became a lesson. With every decision, evolution shifted. They did not know their name, yet they changed history. From them came taller bodies, larger brains, clearer voices.
Intelligence born in fear never disappeared. It evolved. We repeat something very ancient. Survival does not belong to the powerful. It belongs to those who adapt. And that was the true dawn of humanity.
They are gone, but the fire they protected still lives. No names, no monuments, only choices, carved into stone. Survival never belonged to the strongest. It belonged to those who adopted.